Bill Richardson has been governor of New Mexico, Secretary of Energy, and ambassador to the United Nations. He was here recently to address the Springfield Public Forum. He spoke on a topic he knows well as a former border state governor, the future of immigration. And that's where we began our discussion with Governor Richardson.
Unfortunately, even though I'm an optimist, I'm a bit pessimistic. I think what Donald Trump has done, talking about rapists and a wall and fueling the Tea Party, that he's sent a message to moderate Republicans that they can't vote for comprehensive immigration reform, which is border security and a path to citizenship. So regardless of what happens in the presidential election, I think it's going to, for a while, there won't be immigration reform. I really regret it. I'm heartsick. But that's the way I see the landscape, Jim.
Has this really become an issue of political convenience to really make scapegoats out of immigrants, whether it's Mexicans, whether it's Islam, Muslims, to make political hay rather than do something?
Yeah, I mean, people out there in the American public, there's anger, there's anti-elitism, there's populism. And, you know, for a lot of people, there's economic stagnation. And when you get somebody like Trump that fuels that anger, a certain nativism arises, and you have to find somebody to blame, the immigrant. Coupled with the dysfunctionality of the Congress, unable to have a comprehensive immigration reform bill before Trump came in. I mean, so it's not just Trump. And you've got Republicans, the Tea Party, against a path to citizenship. And then you've got Democrats, I will say this, not as to blame as much as Republicans, that, see it as a difficult issue. They'd rather deal with health care, the economy, Iraq, Afghanistan. So, there's blame to go around, Jim.
The issue, simply just a matter of geography, doesn't really have the resonance or importance to us here in New England and the Northeast. But you're a man of the Southwest, New Mexico, border states like that, Arizona, California, Texas. Is it seen in a very different way, or again, is it blown out of proportion in your opinion?
No, it is a huge issue. My state, 45% Hispanic population. Arizona, 22%. California, Texas, very high proportion. But, it's seen in two ways. One is there are some border security issues, but at the same time, you've got a Hispanic population that is growing, that is contributing, that has got jobs, that, the part of the community. And so it becomes an issue you have to deal with every day. I mean, when I was governor, I tried to be constructive. I was one of the first governors that had driver's licenses for undocumented workers because I thought it would integrate them better, and it was good in terms of crime prevention and traffic prevention and accidents. A DREAM Act, which allows kids of immigrants to get the same, they have to satisfy academic standards, a path to getting a college or an education. But I was an anomaly in the Southwest. You've had other governors that, for instance, the governor of Texas today announced that he's suing the federal government for allowing Syrian refugees. So, you've got a very divisive issue on the border, but it's with us every day.
You're one of the few Americans who have been in and dealt with North Korea. A lot of worry right now, a lot of provocative moves by the North Koreans with missile firings, the sense that they're trying to develop a missile that could conceivably reach our West Coast. What's your sense of that regime, of those leaders, of the North Korean military? How much do we need to worry?
Well, we need to worry because we know very little about this new young leader from North Korea who is very preoccupied with his own stability and who keeps escalating. They've got 21 nuclear weapons, Jim. They shoot off missiles. They detonate nuclear weapons. We've got 28,000 American troops. We have a treaty with the South Koreans, Japan. I think the answer is diplomacy. It's going to take some kind of an agreement led by the United States. Everyone assumes China has leverage. They do. But the North Koreans, they want to play ball with us. They want to negotiate with us. But with this new leader, we know very little about what he really wants. I mean, the only guy that's gotten in there to talk to him is Dennis Rodman. He's replaced me as the North Korean envoy.
And who would have figured that one, huh?
I know. I know.
Yeah, Donald Trump said basically, to some extent, what you just talked about. If we want to deal with North Korea, deal with China, because they're the only ones who can make them do anything. Do you accept that? A lot of scholars said no.
No, I don't accept it, because even though the North Koreans get food, fuel, economic assistance from the Chinese, they don't listen to the Chinese. They're in their own little world. And then the Chinese, Jim, why would they want to help us by leaning on the North Koreans? They want that instability in the Korean Peninsula. They don't want a bunch of North Korean refugees coming into China with instability. So it's an impasse. And we have a real rivalry with China right now. You know, the South China Sea, a lot of trade issues, a lot of nuclear proliferation issues. So, you know, that's why we have this stalemate. The answer is diplomacy, maybe third-party diplomacy. They've got an American there in North Korea that we need to get out, Otto Warmbier, a young man from Ohio who just stole a political pennant, and he's got 15 years. I've been trying to get him out.
Kasich had to work on that, didn't he?
Yeah, I'm trying to get him out. We've had some successes with others in the past, but it's an anomaly, Jim. We don't know what this young man in North Korea wants or what makes him tick.
What, if anything, are international leaders, business people, saying or asking you about our election?
You know, I don't mean to get partisan here, but they are distressed about the prospect of Donald Trump. This is in Europe and Latin America. I mean, here's a guy that talks about getting into a trade war with China. He wants not to work closely with NATO and our European allies. But they're concerned because they think that this is a very strong movement that he may win. And in Europe, for instance, Jim, there are movements there, Le Pen, what happened with Brexit in London. There's anti-reform, pro-reform movements against established authority. And Trump has captured that element of reform, even though what he proposes is emotion. It's not sound policy.
Well, Governor Bill Richardson, an honor to have you with us. Thanks for coming.
Great to be in Springfield and Western Mass.